The Gates of Camino.
That situation, or the position about, is this job still open?
Oh, you are a baker.
Yes, sir, and I sure need dough.
I got it. Well, there's the kitchen. You can start in right away.
Thanks. What do you want me to do first?
Excuse me, sir. My name is Smith.
Smith, I'm glad to know you, Mr. Smith.
I'd like you to bake me a cake with a letter S on it.
S?
Yes. You know what an S is, don't you?
Oh, certainly, an S. Well, that's an I with a hook on each end. I beg your pardon.
Pardon me, but how long will it take?
Take a little time. I have to make it up spatial.
Well, that's quite all right. I'll wait.
Thank you.
I think you're nice.
Oh, man, I'm just gorging myself right now. Just eating so much. I'm just trying to get fat.
Thus, I just had some cheesecake before here.
Yeah.
I was thinking we're doing fat people, and we lost a legend today who's the exact opposite of what we're talking about with Shelley.
Oh God, Shelley is total opposite of this. She you could fit like 7 of her and some of these people we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh God, that's crazy. So have you?
Well, just a quick for the Shelley. We tip our hats.
Yeah.
We pour out a little drink. I'm drinking a little tequila and orange juice tonight.
Shelley Duvall is who we're talking about.
Shelley Duvall. Not Shelley from Friday the 13th Part 5. That fat dude. Not him. We will talk about him because he's real.
Wait, it's Part 3. Part 3 was Shelley, right?
Shelley's with Shelley's in 3. You're right. Part 3 is Shelley. Shelley, not that Shelley. We're talking about the real Shelley. The only Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall, baby.
And she was God, man. I mean, all you need is just a couple of the ones that she did. You just need Popeye and The Shining, and you're good.
Man, really. I mean, she had a great run in the 70s with Altman, then up to The Shining, and it's like it's too bad.
She was, and I just remembered, wasn't she in Roxanne?
Was she?
Yeah, I think she was the friend. I think she was like his friend.
Oh fuck. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like she was doing stuff for a long time, and then she just, oh my God, she got bad.
Yeah, it got bad for her at the end.
Yeah.
But
back to the
on the other side of the coin, we got some fat and funny people on film from the history of film. We started talking about it the other day of like, it was sort of like a trope back in the day because we started talking about Fatty Arbuckle.
That's right.
The Fatty Arbuckle case, it's like the first scandal, in Hollywood history. I think it was 1921. Do you know much about Fatty? We'll get into a few of our legends here.
I'll tell you what. I instead of acting like I know, I'll tell you what I read, and you can tell me what is fictional and what has got some truth to it, because I kind of hope that what I read was true. But I read Hollywood Babylon.
And the Kenneth Anger book. Okay.
Yeah. And basically, for you readers out there that don't know it, the story goes in Hollywood Babylon that basically old Fatty Arbuckle, the silent movie phenomenon, the actor, he
really was the first biggest, over Chaplin, Buster Keaton. I mean, it started with Fatty Arbuckle as far as comedy goes.
Yeah. And essentially the story is that he was with this chick, he was big into chicks, obviously, and he was with one of these actresses, and he was up in his, like his hotel room or his apartment or something like that, and he just took a bottle and shoved it up her ass and broke it off, and she died because her guts were all like cut up from the broken bottle.
Oh yeah, okay. So
that's essentially the story that I remember.
I love it. I fucking love it. So, but Hollywood Babylon is like famously like fake. Kenneth Anger wrote what he wanted. Now, what happened? He didn't even have sex with her, Fatty. Now, supposedly, it happened up in San Francisco at the St. Francis Hotel. and he's on the 12th floor, and he had a room, and it was a 2-bedroom room with a friend, and they were just hanging out. Slowly, people word was there that Fatty was at the hotel, and different people were coming in and out of the room. Eventually, there was quite a few people in there, and the girl, her name was Virginia Rappe. She was like 26 years old. Like, she's like an extra, but she was like a notorious, like, just hoe. She was fucking all kinds of people in Hollywood at the time. So she's there at the San Francisco Hotel with another woman named Maud Delmont. And she was kind of like one of those, always try to start trouble. But what happened was Maud Delmont supposedly was in a room with another guy hooking up. Virginia Rappe actually was in Fatty's bathroom throwing up because she was like on medication and all this kind of crap. Oh. Fatty walks in, sees her in the bathroom, puts her in his bed, comes back out. It's like, yeah, this girl's all fucked up or whatever. Eventually they take her away. She dies in the hospital. So Maud Delmont then all of a sudden starts going, well, Fatty raped her. And then it just blew up from there. And he went on trial. He almost went to jail, almost got the chair, I think. Craziness. And he didn't even do it. In fact, he went to trial 3 different times, and he was finally acquitted. And they actually gave him like an apology at the end. It was one of the biggest like injustices ever, is the Fatty Arbuckle case. Fucked up. But he eventually had a small little comeback, but he died right when he was signing a brand new contract. There is a book by Jerry Stahl. You know who Jerry Stahl is? He's the guy who wrote Alf. He was like the heroin addict guy.
Permanent Midnight.
Permanent Midnight. That guy.
I love that movie.
He wrote a book called I, Fatty. And it was he writes it from Fatty Arbuckle's point of view, and it's really good.
Oh wow, I got that. Now that I'd love to read.
In fact, I'm gonna snag you that book.
Oh, that'd be great, because
that's a great one.
That's a. I mean, that is like, whether or not it's the first, sleazy, sordid, Hollywood tale. It's certainly one of the first.
I think it even came before William Desmond Taylor. I mean,
so it's like at least it's the first real big
one. Yeah, there was a couple like things that happened, but Fatty was such a star. I mean, they like when you watch documentaries about it, like they burned most of his movies. Like most of them are gone now. There's a few like 2-reelers that are out there. That
it's like they treated him. They treated him like John Wayne Gacy's paintings. All those guys and gals that bought his paintings up on auction and then just burnt them. And you're like, wait a minute. I mean, yeah, he did some bad stuff. Speaking of a fat dude, there you go, John.
There's another one. Shout out.
We're just sticking with fat tonight. It's all fat.
But Fatty's a great story, though, and like, I mean, I guess like time was kind to him, though. People are discovering him. They know he's not guilty.
Isn't it crazy to think like his name's just Fatty Arbuckle? Can you imagine any character, any actor or actress being called Fatty McMillan?
Like it. Yeah, I know. Well, his name was Roscoe Arbuckle, and he hated the name Fatty. His dad called him Fatty. It was like a real derogatory thing. And as he got in the movies, everyone's like, well, fuck it, you're Fatty. And he had no say. He wasn't even that fat, but like for like those standards back then, he was like a lard ass. But if you look at him now, he's not that big,
Yeah, no, he's I mean, yeah, he's certainly not John Candy or he's almost like Jack Black or something, maybe a little bit bigger, really, but he wasn't like, or what's his name? The guy from King of Queens. What's that guy?
Oh, Kevin James. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's another one.
He was very agile too. He could like do flips and he could do all this kind of shit.
That's the thing. Back then they were all vaudeville.
Yeah. He's a true vaudevillian. Yeah.
So it didn't matter. It didn't matter what kind of shape they're like Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what he
was. And not to stay on him the whole time, but he truly was innovative. Like, for example, he did things that no one else ever did that was just copied afterwards and people got credit for. For example, like Buster Keaton has that famous shot of like the house falling down on him and it goes like in between the windows. It's like a super famous shot.
Yeah, we just saw that.
Yeah, right. What we just saw in the theater. Exactly what we saw in Steamboat Bill Jr. That was done by Fatty Arbuckle first, not at that extent, but he did a thing where a house fell on him and a window went through him. And it was like, that was the gag. You remember Chaplin in the Gold Rush where he has the 2 pieces of bread on the fork and he's dancing with them?
Yeah.
Fatty did that first. So it's like, this dude was like way ahead of everybody,
Oh yeah. So they just totally ripped from him.
He's like crazy. Whole fucking, we were robbed of like greatness with Fatty.
Well, I mean, yeah. it's when you say that, it's a shame, really, because you think. I mean, listen, you could say he's like a genius. Nobody will probably ever put that label on him. But if you have those two, Chaplin and Keaton, stealing from you or borrowing, even if you just want to use the word borrow, like
he was their buddy, so it was like an homage thing. He started both of them almost.
Yeah, and right. They may have just said, "Hey, this is for Fatty." I mean, they've done so many other things too. It's not like it's just him, but still. So we've got ourselves, like, if he is our beginning. And what I liked about this topic is that you can literally trace it all back to him.
Yeah.
And it's literally every decade from him. When was he? The
20s, teens and 20s.
Teens and 20s, right? So from
I think 1921's when the bust happened, and then that was really it.
But from the late 20s, certainly into the 30s and into the 40s, you had Abbott and Costello, Laurel. Well, I think you had Laurel and Hardy first.
Laurel and Hardy were first.
Laurel and Hardy first. So you had big old Oliver Hardy.
Love Laurel and Hardy too.
Laurel and Hardy were great, and that big old Hardy motherfucker, and they were, of course, gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were and when I was a kid, I used to watch. I had VHS tapes that, like, my grandmother gave me of Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello, and of course, Abbott and Costello is like after them. They're basically the next, iteration of that. But
and you had Curly and the Three Stooges.
Oh, and Curly and the Three. What am I saying? Curly and the Three. I love the Three Stooges to this day are some of the funniest shit you'll ever see.
Mm-hmm.
You just put on the Three Stooges and see them just start like whipping each other and beating each other and like.
Stooges are fucking badass. Yeah,
funny, so fucking funny. Like, when I was a kid, I loved it, and my dad would just laugh his ass off. And then there was probably I always liked him, but I would say that there was probably like a good span of time where I was just like, probably junior high into high school, where I just didn't pay attention to him. But, it to this day, I mean, it doesn't fail. They're always funny. I could watch any of their things and it's funny as hell. And the same, I mean, Laurel and Hardy is not as funny to me, but as a kid, I loved that stuff. There was one that I had, Laurel and Hardy, and it was like a ghost house.
Okay.
They were like at a haunted house, and like I that's just what I remember. And obviously, like, you've got Stan Laurel, who just doesn't say it. He's like,
and I kind of dig that. Here's a funny little thing about them. There is, and Paul was telling me this. This is a crazy little thing. There was a guy. He's always like, not the bad guy, but he's always like the antagonist to them. He has a mustache. He's this bald guy, but his name was James Finlayson. And every time you see him, they're always doing something to him, and he's always like, "Dole," and then they do. He's always doing "Dole." He does it all the time. And I found out later. Paul was telling me that's where the Simpsons took dough for Homer Simpson. Yeah.
Hey, look at that. Another fat dude.
Another fat guy. Yeah, there you go.
Another funny fat guy. I mean, it's amazing, the connection of all this.
I think out of all the early fat people that you named, I think I like the least would probably be Lou Costello. I know he's Italian. It's a little bit sacrilege for us, but
I mean, of the two of them, I always loved Abbott.
I did too.
Yeah, Abbott was like, I don't know, he just was cooler or something. I mean,
Costello was just too much by the
silly.
book, the funny man. Yeah.
Oh, well, he was just too silly. Like, Curly was silly, and Curly Joe, you had the two of them. I mean, look, I like Curly Joe too. Don't get me wrong.
I used to like Shemp the best.
Oh, shit. Oh, come on. Who does not like Shemp?
Who doesn't like Shemp? Exactly.
Shemp is the one that it's kind of crazy. That's another crazy story, but because he died, it's so bizarre. Like, Curly, like, he died, and then Curly Joe died, or Curly Joe died first, and then Shemp died, something like that. And then they brought in Curly. Or something like that.
You know what it was? I think I know what it was. If I remember correctly, Shemp was first, and it's going to kill me because I forget the guy's name. But it was somebody in the Stooges, and the Three Stooges. They weren't the Three Stooges by themselves at first. At first, they were like a three tag-alongs to a guy, and it was Moe, Larry, and Shemp. but there was another guy who was the leader of the group, and they were like just little, the comic relief. But then as the show went on, those three were the standouts. But then when it happened, I think at that point, Shemp was like, I don't want to do the show anymore. I'm going to do my own thing.
Okay,
and then Curly and him and Mo were brothers. Larry was the outsider. So Curly was the youngest brother out of all of them. So when Shemp left, Curly came in. Then when Curly got sick, they brought Shemp back in. And there is one episode with Shemp that Curly's in the episode too. He has a cameo. He has hair and he's on an airplane and stuff like that. But then after Shemp left and it got into like the 50s and everything, it was Curly Joe, and then was it just Joe? Or there was two more.
It was Curly Joe. I'm looking at it now. It was Curly Joe, and then Joe.
Joe, okay. Joe. Does it say who they were with at the very beginning?
Yeah, Shemp was the first.
But who was the guy that they had the show with? Before it was the Three Stooges.
Let's see. 6 total Stooges. The Ted Healy and his
Ted Healy, that's it. Yeah, Ted Healy and the Three Stooges. So that was like the group for a while.
And come on, we cannot forget Larry. I love Larry.
Larry, awesome.
Larry is like Larry might be the best because he's got the weirdest hair. I remember the
it was like Sean Penn in Carlito's Way.
Yeah, but you know what's funny is that I was just going to say that I remember when I first moved out to LA, there was they were really trying to make this. They were going to make the 3. They ended up making it, but it was like a terrible movie. But
I remember that. Yeah,
they were going to have Benicio del Toro as Mo, Sean Penn as Larry.
Oh my God,
and Jim Carrey as Curly.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome because I would have. Sean would have killed.
Larry. Oh God,
that would have been the. I mean, he'd just do his Carlito's Way again, but he would have. But I mean, he would have just like. But
man.
But again, so you had 2 Curly, so you had so you technically had 3 because you had the Joe guy too. So you had 3 funny fats there.
Yeah.
And they were, I mean, obviously Curly is like the numero, even though I like Curly Joe too. He was pretty good. And that's funny because that's going at the same time as Abbott and Costello.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and like you said, Costello was sort of, I mean, here's the thing with Abbott and Costello. I've watched pieces of some of those movies like Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello. Yeah. And, I think the one that I had was Abbott and Costello. What's the one where they it's the Wolfman and Frankenstein?
Yeah, meets Frankenstein.
And okay, so I've seen that one, and the VHS. So I had the VHS of that, and I had the VHS of, I guess it was called the Colgate Hour or something.
Oh yeah.
And on that one they had. Obviously, it wasn't they've done it a million times, but they had the Who's On First.
Right. Which that's not originally theirs, so.
It's not.
Yeah, that's been done a few times.
Yeah, well,
but theirs is the famous great
theirs
one.
Is the famous, and it is really good. But again,
it is really good.
I'm with you. They were certainly the Hollywood one. They had all the movies. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that were. And I always heard that Lou Costello was an ass.
Yeah, I've heard that multiple times.
He was like just not somebody that he was not a nice dude. He's one of the fat guys that might have been funny on screen, but he was one of the
he was an unfunny fat guy, unfortunately. But that's throughout. Now we went through like the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, into the 50s a little bit. Like who really was the 50s, 60s,
50s
fat guys?
I mean. Yeah, because Lou, obviously the Stooges were gone. Costello and Abbott is sort of fading out,
and known for being fat and funny. I mean, there's a lot of characters that were heavy, but that wasn't like just their shtick. It
wasn't their shtick. I mean, 50s into the 60s,
because it's all going to lead up to the GOAT, and that's John Candy.
Oh yeah,
once the 70s, the early 80s come, I think Candy's the greatest fat funny man of all time, I think.
Right. I don't know if I could imagine anybody else that would take that crown.
Yeah, there wouldn't be.
But I do, I'm with you. Like in the late 50s into the 60s,
there are some TV fat guys,
and I think that's fair. I think it's fair to throw that in. I mean, but when I think about it, the only one I can think of 50s into 60s would be
Victor Bueno.
Yeah, now he was. Oh God, now he could be funny, but he wasn't.
He wasn't funny though. You're right. He wasn't that funny.
He wasn't. Yeah, and it wasn't his. It's hard for me to. I mean,
there were times he was funny, but he wasn't. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Now I was thinking about this, and we may have to like search on the 50s and 60s, but it's a cartoon. But you had Fat Albert.
Once the 70s came, I would. Yeah. In
the 70s, it was like maybe. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe the 70s saw a rebirth of that stuff. Oh, you know what? I know who might have been, who was the guy, and this is totally 60s. All right. You have to help me with this one.
Okay.
You went, he was in the movie you went to see with Mark. It's a mad.
Oh, Buddy Hackett?
That guy.
Oh, Buddy Hackett. That's great.
He's like the 60s one. He would be the 60s one because he's
not even that fat, but he was considered a chub. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Jonathan Winters.
That's another great one. Oh, yeah. In fact, let me tell you, I heard I heard this from a few actors, actually, like older guys, but a few people have said, and I've seen it in documentaries and stuff, that like when you meet people, like, on camera, there's people who are funny and not funny, but behind closed doors, Jonathan Winters was always heard was the funniest guy ever. I've heard that from multiple people.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah. And I saw an old clip. I think I was online. I saw an old clip of him on Johnny Carson, and he's just going off saying stuff, and Johnny's like about to fucking piss himself. Like it was classic, whatever. I don't remember what they're talking about.
I love watching those old, old, Johnny Carsons from the 70s when they'd have like him or Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh yeah, Rickles.
And Rickles. And I'd say Don Rickles, but Don Rickles wasn't really a fat. He didn't get fat till later in life.
No, I just remember him on Johnny.
I just thought of something. Here's something we may have to back up for a second.
Oh, Dom DeLuise.
Dom DeLuise.
That's 70s.
That's 70s, but that's a great one.
God bless that motherfucker. I
loved Dom DeLuise. I mean, he was just such a delightful turkey.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
I mean? You always were like, because he had that stash and he was like
Captain Chaos.
He was always just funny, But I was thinking we skipped something interesting that you can't leave out.
Okay.
So here's some fat that we forgot. Little Rascals.
Oh.
What's his name? Spanky.
Good one.
And totally, and I think
kids were always allowed to be fat. Yeah.
There was always some fun, fat little kids. And that's totally, 20s and 30s, and I think there was another guy too, another kid of that group, and I can't remember it might have been Dingbat or something. I don't know, but I mean, it was something like it was a weird name.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. And here's another one. I mean, because I feel like we could throw in. I think it'll be fair to throw in. Well, you can tell me if you think we should go this way, but you could also throw in the two, like from Alice in Wonderland, the two fat twins or whatever, the Tweedledee Tweedledum or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember who that is.
Yeah, it's just the voice, because even the Baloo, big old fat bear. There's things like that.
Yeah,
that it's just it's ingrained. I mean, we can keep it real. We don't have to go cartoon, but still, though, I mean, Fat Albert.
I mean, there were so many. Like I thought about back in the Humphrey Bogart days. There's a guy named Sidney Greenstreet, and he was very funny.
Oh, yeah,
I'm talking about from the Maltese Falcon and stuff.
Yeah,
and he's in all these dramas, but he's funny in every one.
Damn it. We just forgot one.
Okay.
W.C. Fields.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell are we doing? What is this?
Love W.C. Fields.
And that's like another one of those fat, but his thing is the drunk, and
oh yeah, he was a real drunk too. I mean,
and that's a good one because that's a true film star.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a film star, and he was a biggie.
Again, not even that fat either, but back
definitely.
then.
Yeah, for back then, for sure. Because I mean, back then, it was, it ain't like it is now.
Yeah, in fact, you never really got fat until it was like Dom DeLuise,
Right.
Have you ever seen Fatso with Dom DeLuise? It's like his only drama. Anne Bancroft, I believe, directed it.
Oh, whoa.
And it's funny, actually. Yeah, it's he's like dealing with his weight and eating issues.
Of course, it's going to be funny because he's not going to. Yeah, he can't. He's like just.
I mean, it's a drama, but you can't help but to laugh.
Yeah, you can't help but laugh at that dude. That's what he's like. Okay, so we're. I mean, oh wait a minute. I mean, well, then I start thinking about actors, but then it's unfair because they're not. If they're not known to be fat, like then it's because I was thinking, well, you got Rod Steiger in his later years. But he does drama.
Not known for being fat, right? Yeah. Right. I think there is this thing because I was thinking all these '80s movies. 80s movies always had that fat comic relief actor, right. But they were always someone different in every movie. Like it was rarely like somebody who became a star from being like the fat funny guy. Well, besides John Candy, like it became Chris Farley, but it was very far and few in between after that.
Yeah, I mean,
Kevin James got in kind of good shape. He's a martial artist and
he's
stuff.
A martial artist now. Yeah, but he totally made his career on being, plump.
He played fat though. Yeah.
And here's another one that did John Goodman.
Oh yeah. John Goodman. John Goodman.
For sure in the 80s. He was like
just on Roseanne alone.
Yeah, Roseanne. And once you like when we get into the 70s here, you're right. That's where it really opens up because stand-up comedy, you had stand-up comedy becomes big and that brings in more comedy. So you had Fat Albert on TV. You had, like you said, John Candy started really
and so many people were just big, from Clifton James to Emmett Walsh. They were all just these heavy guys, It was like
and that's another thing. It's like Emmett Walsh, not really a comedy, drama, but it was permeating through everything. It's like you had to have the big guy, but Clifton James is a great one.
Clifton James, I know he's not funny, but he always makes me laugh.
Well, no, but he is funny. I mean, he's got some. I mean, Silver Streak. I mean, he's got some. And another one is Clifton James is like the poor man's fucking Charles Durning.
Yeah,
and Charles Durning is funny as hell.
Yeah,
and
right.
He was a bit. Yeah,
Charles Durning. Paul.
Paul. That's right. What am I saying? Paul Dooley.
One of the greats. Him and Charles Durning remind me a lot of each other with their acting styles, actually.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. It's a grumpiness, the gruffness.
And they have this thing where they just seem like they're light on their toes, which makes you better, makes that comedy kind of come out. And stuff.
Yeah, and that's what John Candy was great at.
Candy really, it just all came together with him,
Yeah, he was. Once he got, they broke through that SCTV and he started hitting doing the films. I mean,
everyone was a fucking banger.
Everyone. I mean, listen, even
every fucking one.
Splash.
Yep.
Brewster's Millions. And then he starts leading. Oh, his scene in Vacation. His scenes in Blues Brothers.
Yeah,
he's funny
his
in
little cameo scenes are always brilliant. Every fucking thing, everything.
Every one.
Even when he did drama in your movie, JFK, he was amazing.
He was great in that. And then once he starts leading and stuff in the 80s, he does what is it? Volunteers? Was that?
That'd be Volunteers. And
he's in Stripes. He was in Stripes.
Oh, Stripes. I fucking love him in Stripes. Dewey Oxberger.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean. Everything I've named is a hit.
Yeah,
is a huge. Then he gets Great Outdoors.
Oh yeah,
and that was the movie.
That's one of the all-time.
That was the all-timer. I had already loved him by then, but that movie
when he did like Uncle Buck and Great Outdoors, and he was just becoming like almost everybody's like dad. It was just he was just the man at that point.
And then his cameo in Home Alone.
I barely seen Home Alone. I think I watched it once. I'm not a big. God. I know that's my.
His cameo
black eye.
is worth seeing. His cameo is totally, because he's funny in it again, and he's got a little drama going with it.
Oh,
okay. And it's crazy to think like he had Great Outdoors into you're right, like Uncle Buck. And
have you ever seen Armed and Dangerous?
I love Armed and Dangerous.
Yeah, shout out Steve Rosback. He has that scene in it with
I
him.
love that. That's my favorite scene where he's the driver of the truck.
The truck, yeah.
And the music starts and he's like, "Well, hold on." Yeah, he's like, "Well, hold on, Slim. We about to go now." I mean, that's my favorite scene of the movie. It's always been my favorite scene.
Fuck yeah.
Because it's like,
that movie.
I just love that scene of that movie.
Was that Kenneth McMillan in that with him?
Kenneth, the
Meg Ryan's dad.
Oh yeah.
He's like the bad cop kind of or whatever.
Yes. Kenneth McMillan's another one.
Yeah,
that's another one.
Kind of is, huh?
He really totally is. He was in. He was doing that shtick in
all throughout the 80s. He was mostly funny,
but he was and he could go between scary and funny for sure because he had that rage in him. But that Jack Daniels rage.
Right.
And then of course we can't forget his partner in crime in that, Eugene Levy.
Oh, yep.
Who again, I mean, not that he's fat, but he's like honorary fat. But and again, I mean, before we get into the demise of John Candy, because I mean, he was the 80s. He was the 80s. Yeah. But there was the poor man's John Candy that also hit in the 80s. Louis Anderson. Louis Anderson. I was gonna say, I was like Louis Anderson, and then Louis C.K. I was like, who the fuck am I talking about? Louis Anderson. And I loved Louis Anderson.
Oh, Louis Anderson. I love Louis too. I was bummed when he died.
I know. God, they all die. All of these fatties, all the fat funny fats die.
Yeah.
They don't live forever.
I think was the last great fat funny guy who owned it,
Who owned the fat?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and the drugs and everything that you need to be doing when you're a good fat actor.
Well, and the thing is
Candy smoked like 3 packs a day and shit.
Yeah, I mean, his was, and I think that he was doing. I mean, I've heard that he was doing heroin too.
Candy?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, for sure. Awesome. Like he was he was like a partier. But the thing is, Candy he did it behind closed doors, whereas Chris Farley was like just fucking out in the open.
Yeah, that was part of his
that was the thing. Yeah,
persona. Yeah, he was like another John Belushi.
Oh God, we missed John Belushi.
Does he count?
Oh yes. Oh fucking
he's just on that cusp of,
no, he is. Okay. I don't care. He is. When you think of John Belushi.
Yeah.
John Belushi is, I always rotund to me. Like he's always, I mean, I know what you mean because in those early days of like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, he's not that.
He's not bad, but
got a gut.
But when he became a star with Animal House, that's because look at him in that. He's just this big bulbous
He was
creature.
Sloppy as fuck.
He's sloppy.
Question.
Yeah.
No question,
And but he's definitely not John Candy. He's definitely not John Goodman. He's definitely not Chris Farley type.
But here's why you're right though. Because would he be as funny if he wasn't even chubby though? Like that's how the Blues Brothers
that's the thing.
Yes, works.
Yes,
you gotta have in the group really.
Yes, well. You gotta have. They look at how they look. The skinny toothpick and the big. Even the jokes in that movie, right? Where when they go get the soul food because they're trying to get Matt Guitar Miller or whatever his name is, and they're ordering with Aretha, and she's like, "What do you want?" And Dan Aykroyd, because he's all skinny, and he's like, "I'll just take some,
toast
white toast." And then she looks at John. He's like, "I want 4 fried chickens and a Coke." And he means fried chickens. Yeah. So it's for sure. And you're right. Like when he's doing now, listen. I'll even throw this in with Belushi. Like all the greats, just like John Candy, just like Chris Farley, just like Fatty Arbuckle. Just like Curly and John Belushi was super athletic, super agile.
No, he could flip, he could do stuff.
He could flip, and he did that stuff, and that's what made it so funny. Is he's just this big fat guy just flipping, in Blues Brothers, and then
Animal House,
and then and when you think about that, and you think about how big of a star he was. to say that just movie wise, like I've seen Animal House, obviously. I've seen Blues Brothers about 1 billion times.
Yeah.
One of my all timers. And I've seen Neighbors. My dad had on VHS, he had Neighbors, and he had, what was the one he did right before that? Something Continental Divide. Yeah. And I saw that. My dad loved both of those.
That was the drama. Yeah.
But that was the drama. And I remember watching it with my dad, and I'm thinking, like, oh, yeah, another John Belushi funny movie. And it was so, I was like, and I was a kid, so I was like, what the fuck is this? But that's it. Am I missing one?
Oh,
I don't think so.
He had, I mean, it's like at that point, when you at that point it becomes like there's iconic characters that was like Chunk in the Goonies, or like there's going to be movies that have like Meatballs. They had the fat guy. The guy who played the fat guy in Meatballs is also the fat guy in My Bloody Valentine, but he's like has the mustache and he has a girlfriend.
Oh yeah,
so he's kind of a but he was he's dead now too, but he was a pretty good fat Canadian funny guy.
Well, and
John Candy.
And then you forget. I mean, we mentioned some of these movies, but we got Monster Squad. You got
that kid,
fat kid. He died. He died young. Yeah, he died. He died like I don't think he hit 21.
The Nards kid, Wolfman.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he died young, like young. Like he died. I want to say like 20 or before. I know for a fact he didn't reach 30. I mean, it was young, and because it was a real shocking thing, and so he died young. But I think his was like a disease or something. But you're right. You had Chunk. Obviously, the funny fat kid, and
the Sandlot had the catcher.
The Sandlot had the catcher.
Yeah.
We already talked about Shelley, good old Shelley from part 3 of Friday.
Yeah.
But then part 5 had Mikey,
the chocolate eating
chocolate guy,
child molester kid in real life.
So yeah, he really molests children. He molests the Coreys, the 2 Coreys he got.
Speaking of fat child molesters, the guy from the Nickelodeon, he was an actor too. He played Ricky in Better Off Dead.
See, look at this. I mean, it was
Dan
like
Schneider. Dan
Schneider.
Yeah.
It's
so you're either funny or you're a child molester.
Yeah, when you're fat, you're either funny or you're a child molester. So now I want to throw this before because as we're getting closer to the recent years, we start petering out. But one thing we haven't mentioned is the women's.
Oh my God!
There's some that we've left out.
We went and watched some old Vitographs and that Warner Brothers put out, but the people they actually filmed were mostly old vaudeville people,
Right.
And the first one we saw was this big fat lady doing this act, and she was awesome. And I was like, oh man, it's like she should have been like a star. But you're right, there's so many great ones from Mae West.
Mae West,
I mean, she's kind of funny, more like
ridiculous. No, she's ridiculous, but I mean, I would even throw in now with women, it's a little bit different because typically, not always, but typically they start off thin and then they became fat as they got older because of the Hollywood system. You know what I mean? Like they got older, so they didn't get any more roles, and then they just kind of let themselves go, and then they got more roles because they became, So
Nell Carter.
Yes. You reading my mind here. You have stuff like and let's not forget Throw Mama from the Train and
Anne Ramsey.
Ramsey.
You're that's so right for bringing up the women. You're right. There's so many great fat women.
Because she was God. How can you not laugh at everything? I mean, even when she was in the dramas and when she did that like horror movie, the Wes Craven thing, she's funny as hell. She's just this
fucking creepy. Yeah.
And I'll tell you another one that's very not like same as in style of acting, but certainly same time period, and certainly was like in her youth was like just dynamite dripping. You want to just lick, and she became, is Shelley Winters.
Oh. Yeah, no, you're totally right.
Yeah, she is it Winters or Winter? Shelley Winter. Or is it Winters? Winters, yeah. So she's like Jonathan Winters,
Yeah.
But yeah, she totally, was a knockout, and then she became sort of plump, and it's different with girls. They're not going to be like John Candy big. They're going to be, they're more of like
right
plump, but they're still. And I mean, listen, let me tell you something. I haven't seen a lot of Shelley Winters stuff, but I will forever be a Shelley Winters fan. And I've seen Mad World. So, I mean, I know she's in that, but the thing that I'll always love her in is the Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, she just stills your heart in that.
Yeah.
And Gene Hackman, when she's dying, she's like, Lord, why'd you take this woman?
Have you seen around that time? She was on Carson. I think it was Carson with Oliver Reed.
Yes, I love that. Awesome. When she poured the water on his head, and I love Oliver just sits there and takes it. He's so classy.
Remember, she dumps it. And then I don't know what she does. She just sits there, everyone's laughing, and he's like, says something like about like, well, this is what happens when you're a feminist or something like that.
Yeah, because the thing that got her to throw it on him is that she's they were having this banter back and forth, and she obviously didn't like him for whatever reason. He's awesome, but
he's probably a pig.
Yeah, the best kind, and. But he said something like, because he's smart as hell, he's Brit, they're all brilliant. Right. And he said he was really good with his wordplay to her. And it was something to the extent of, well, madam, when we do this in head, it's just something, the way he delivered it was super awesome. And she got up and walked off, and then she comes back. He's been trying to talk to Johnny the whole time, and she was interrupting. It was like, shoot, nope, shut, and finally she comes in, and as he's been talking to Johnny, she just pours the water on him, and he stands up and he doesn't do anything. He just takes it and he kind of like does his mustache and sits back down. And then he says that line that you're saying. He's
okay.
Yeah, this is why feminism does not work.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. But yeah, so she had Shelley Winters. You get into the 80s, you got Roseanne.
Oh my God, I fucking forgot about Roseanne.
I mean, how can you forget Roseanne?
Oh my God. Like
the
females are a whole other world,
I know. She started off fat and then she's gotten skinny. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but she was like, and she was, how can you think? I mean, it's hard for me to
stand up too. Rosie O'Donnell.
Rosie O'Donnell was like
stand ups that went.
You're right. Yeah, these are the stand ups. Yeah, funny people. And you're right. Rosie O'Donnell's a great one. Rosie O'Donnell was she was
League of Their Own.
And Another 48 Hours.
Yeah.
Or not another Stakeout. That's what another Stakeout.
And then wasn't she in Exit to Eden? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, something. Aykroyd? Yeah, she had a few
good movies.
Yeah, a few good movies. And but yeah, so Rosie O'Donnell, Roseanne, of course. I feel like we're forgetting.
I'm sure there's quite a few we're forgetting.
I mean, I typed in, what was funny is before we even started, I went on Google and I just said funny fat people in film.
Oh my God.
And I just put all these in it and I clicked on images, and it reminded me of a lot of stuff, because there's a couple little ways we can go about this as well. So let's finish up sort of like the real, what we've got going, which is that, so we had Roseanne, we had, we get into the 80s, getting into the 90s.
Yeah. Now, do we cross over into the 21st century? I mean, was there ever, after like Farley and everyone from the 90s, Roseanne, was there ever anybody that kind of, Kevin James kind of, but again,
Kevin James, no, I give that credit.
Yeah,
I mean, Kevin James. Well, here's another one, Jonah Hill. He was only good when he was fat.
You're right. Jonah Hill was funny guy.
He was a fat funny guy, a fat funny fuck guy.
Yep.
And he was, and I only like him when he's fat. He's horrible now that he's thin. I don't give a shit about him.
Yeah.
It's like, because his humor, because he's such an asshole, it really only works when you're fat. You know what I mean? The way he's so, it just doesn't work. But you had him, and now that's the new century. And a girl to go along with that, there's a couple. One, Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, definitely.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then to go along with her, now I hate this girl, but I mean I don't hate her, but I don't.
I know you're gonna say
The blonde,
Amy
the
Schumer.
oh well, you're right. I don't even know if she's like the John Belushi fat of girls. It's hard to. She is plump, but I wouldn't necessarily go straight to her. But who I was thinking of is that Australian blonde that she just ended up losing. She was in all those
Rebel
Pitch
Wilson.
Perfect. Rebel Wilson. She's skinny now, but she was funny when she was just a big old pig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
well,
then
I was watching Jerry Seinfeld's movie Unfrosted, and he had Amy Schumer. Is that her name? Amy Schumer, right? Had Amy Schumer and Jim Gaffigan, and I was like, oh, they're both fat and funny, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jim Gaffigan. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I'm looking at a picture right now of Rebel Wilson, and she's looking good now. Jesus Christ, I don't even like to think about that. But
yeah, it's funny.
So yeah, and then of course I've said this. You know, Jack Black. Jack Black came along in the late '90s, and totally, you know, he embraced it. He's not huge, you know. He's definitely not the John Belushi or the Chris Farley types, but he's still, you know,
he can look a little big though.
He's big and he's short, so that helps it. And then, you know, here's some. Oh God! Wait a minute. I'm just looking at these pages. This sickens me. We didn't even mention this.
Okay.
Jackie Gleason.
Holy Christ.
Fuck! Who the fuck are we? What are we doing here?
We're not even human.
That is like the biggest of the 50s. That's awful. The 50s.
You're right. He owned the 50s.
And then of course he's great. I mean, you know, in the 70s, the Honeymooners. But then when he starts doing Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah. Buford T. Justice.
I mean, he basically originated. He was the genesis, the genital of that like type of character, the Southern redneck.
He was fucking Gleason. I can't believe we forgot about him.
We forgot Gleason of all things.
Oh, Jackie Gleason was fucking no, he's a legend.
Now, just because we're just all over the place. Yeah, I'm just going to throw these in. This was interesting because these are pictures here on the Google.
Okay.
And it's something to think about because these are all big. Okay. How about all the fat on film, the funny fat on film portrayed by skinny people? So The Nutty Professor. Huge movies.
Yeah.
And he's a giant pumpkin in those.
Yep.
You had
Shallow
Hal. You had what's his name? Fat bastard in the Goldmember.
Yeah,
you know bastard. That fact. And you just said Tim Allen as Santa Claus because it's all about him being fat. I mean, that's the funny, you know.
Holy shit!
And you even had Brendan Fraser winning the Oscar for playing a gigantic 700.
Yeah, but that wasn't really funny. But yeah.
No, I mean, well, it depends on who you ask.
I remember I never actually. I don't think I even watched an episode of Friends, but I remember back in the day. Oh, you did?
No, I never saw Friends.
Oh, okay, because somebody told me that I think it was Courtney Cox. When she was young, her character is younger. She used to be fat on the show, so when it did flashbacks, she wore a fat suit and she was.
I know what you're talking. Yeah, so there you go. Like they played that up for laughs. What's his name? Colin Farrell playing the Penguin.
Yeah,
big old fat penguin recently. So it's weird that there's a. You know, it's now you're not casting fat people anymore. You're casting skinny people to be fat. Like they've moved into this strange place where now they don't want to hire fat people to be fat in these movies. They want to just because remember what was the Johnny Depp movie with that great big old orca woman?
Oh, well, who's eating Gilbert Grape?
Yes, and that was a real woman. That was a real woman. You know, like that, they cast that, and that's what made that movie like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was fucking crazy. She was huge.
Yeah. Here's another one now this is cartoon, but hey, you got, you said Homer Simpson, you got Police Chief Wiggum, Barney
I mean,
from The Simpsons, like
sure. And then
Family Guy.
Family Guy, right? Cartman from South Park. There's a lot of fat cartoon characters.
It's like it's ingrained in us. You gotta have Plumpy. Oh, here's another one. I mean, now this guy is
shout out Ron Jeremy.
Fat on porn. Like that's the other thing. Is like that's a great one right there because it's film. He certainly has been on film. He's been in films and he's been on film.
He was in my movie. He played Jesus.
He's in your movie. Yeah, he was in your movie. And he was, obviously funny as hell. He is funny. I mean, he's funny.
He is
like,
funny.
there's no doubt. Like, even in the pornos.
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I remember one of the first pornos I ever saw. He was in, and it was he was so funny. And I thought to myself, like, I mean, I was like 5th grade. And I had this porno that my stepdad had left in the, he came down one summer, I had just gotten out of 4th grade and it was the summertime and my vicious, just gross stepfather comes down one day after work and he's got a bag full of VHS, like a grocery bag, plastic grocery bag full of VHS pornos. Oh. But I didn't know they were pornos. They were movies. And he said, hey, you, and I'm down. I was like literally sitting on the ground, Indian style, playing with my wrestlers. I had my little wrestling ring, WWF, and I'm like playing my wrestlers. And he comes down and he's like, hey, you see this? You see this bag? And I'm like, yeah. And I was scared of that guy anyway because he's just a violent dude. But he was like, you see this bag? You see these movies? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you don't watch them. These are my movies. These are a bunch of and I think I even said like, oh, are they rated R or something? He said, yeah, they're rated R. And he went over to the TV and he puts them underneath the console. And I didn't think about them because I just thought like, oh, they're probably stupid movies I wouldn't like, because I was still watching, 5th grade. I was still watching like cool movies like Flintstones or some shit. But anyway.
Was that the first porn you ever saw?
Oh, yeah. So then, I told the brothers across the street, I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. So my stepfather brought home some movies and he told me not to watch them. And then the older of the two brothers was like, he did what? He knew. And we went over there and we just dug. It was like Christmas. It was like, what is this? But so one of those pornos, and I don't know the name of it. I couldn't tell you the name of it, but I remember the scene vividly. It was Ron Jeremy. And I was like, who is this fat fuck? This hairy fucking, and it was a redhead. And obviously she's playing his girlfriend in the scene and they're in an apartment and everything. And I remember watching it thinking like, oh, this looks like a real movie because it's shot on film, And he says to her, like, essentially he's saying like, why don't we shoot a movie? And she's like, okay. And so he's like got the camera or something. It's like an old VHS camera. He says that. And I remember him saying like, so he's like naked. He's like fucking her. And I remember him saying in the scene, like I'm like Spielberg or something like that.
That's
like he was,
so awesome.
he, and I remember he like references Spielberg. It's like, whoa, my mind is blown. This world of sex understands what Spielberg is, or you know what I mean? It was this huge, weird moment for me growing up. But anyway, so yeah.
I remember the first porn I ever saw. I found it under my dad's couch, and I didn't know what it was. It was a VHS, and it just said Hot Fudge. And I was like, I knew it was the dirty movie, but I didn't know what it was. And I put it on. It was just this white dude banging a black chick. I was like, yes. Fucking sweet.
Oh yeah. But there you go. You had, so Ron Jeremy is the big, he's big and he's fat and he's fucking.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had all the small, I mean, I was even thinking this, like there were so many, you had said this earlier, small characters.
Yeah.
One-timers. Popped up. Yeah. One-timers that popped up in movies, popped up in TV shows. And there was the guy, Uncle Phil from, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
You had
James
the other,
Avery, right?
Yeah, James Avery. And he was in movies too. He was in License to Drive. You know,
one of the first times I ever saw him in a movie was The Stuntman by Richard Rush. He was just
look
in the
at that.
very opening scene. He was the guy who ran the restaurant.
So I mean, yeah. So he'd been working forever. You had the father from what was that show?
Oh, Family Matters.
Family Matters.
Reginald Vell Johnson.
Yes, you had him. You had
because he's even funny in Die Hard, you know.
Yeah, he's funny as fuck. That dude's funny as hell.
Yeah,
and he's still working. I've seen him in. commercials.
Yeah, he does those commercials now too.
Yeah, he's still funny as hell. You had, I mean, hell, even Medea. Tyler Perry is playing like a fat black woman.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah. And then I was thinking, you know, but here's another one. For some reason, this popped up on my feed the other day, and I just started watching some scenes from it, and I'm like, God, this was not a great movie, but I'd watch the hell out of again. Was Darkman, and in Darkman, you had Larry Drake.
Larry
Drake.
Yeah.
He's got, but then you had the guy in there. He's like he's dead now, but the big old bald fat dude that was sort of, he would always play the tough guy in these movies, and he never really had a lot of lines. He was in
from The Wanderers.
Not that dude, but that dude. That's a great that's another great example, because that dude was in Popeye.
Yeah, he was in Popeye as well. He's in those two. But talking about Popeye, Paul White.
White. Oh yeah, and the brother.
Oh my God! We totally forgot Donovan Scott.
He's one of the all-timers.
Yeah, Donovan.
He was shout out to Donovan Scott. He was. I mean, God, because it was more than just Popeye. That dude was so great.
No, I mean, he showed up. He's in
Psycho. Police Academy movies. The Psycho movies. Best of Times.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit.
Castor Oil. Ain't that his name in Popeye?
Castor Oil. That's it. Damn, he's great too.
Oh yeah.
Fuck, I mean, this is like, oh man, that you just, I mean, now my mind
so
is
many now. There's so many like legends that like are there. Yeah.
Well, here's another one. Here's another one that I'm going to throw at you, but this is another fake one. But you tell me. Come on, Weird Al Yankovic in Fat. I mean. That was the video, and I don't know when the last time you saw that video, but that is a crazy ass video.
That is true.
It's just, I mean, you know, you even, hey, wait, what are we talking about? Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was funny. Well, I mean, look, he was in Boogie Nights. He's showing off that gut. You know,
he is funny in Boogie Nights.
He's funny in Boogie Nights and a few of them. But again, yeah, you're right. He's drama. Does a lot more drama.
Yeah, he's an Oscar winner. You know. Yeah. There's a few fat people that snuck by the goalie there, and they did real stuff. Makes me think as far back as the 40s. Chris's grandfather, John Bram, who
he was
directed,
fat.
No, he directed a couple really big horror movies in the 40s, starring a guy named Laird Cregar. And he was sort of the original Vincent Price. He was this great, you know, horror actor, but he was gigantic. In fact, he died young because he had one of those operations to lose weight, and there were complications from it. And he died from that. You know, he tried not to be fat, and he died for it.
Oh God! I mean,
that's the lesson.
Yeah, all you biggies out there, we love you, and stay big. And just enjoy it, because
stay big.
You know, that's what you bring to the world, and it's worth billions of dollars. I mean, it's crazy, because I'm looking at all these pictures, and I really can't even begin. I mean, it's just, there's so many of them, and then I look at these pictures, and I'm instantly reminded of, like, as I said before, you know, somebody from the Halloween movies, or somebody from the night. You know, it's
there's so many.
There's so many.
I mean, even name everybody either.
Yeah, it's so crazy, but it is a staple. It is you have to have it. You have to have it. They're
one of the
funny.
Greatest things. I mean, I did it for my movie. We got a kid, you know?
That big, the big boy. Yeah,
and he stands out. You know, that was the.
He's fun. He might be the best part in there. I mean, he's so hilarious.
I mean, he's hilarious, and you don't have the same comedy. I mean, there's a certain shtick behind, you know, that kind of humor. You know, it's definitely slapstick, but it's funny. But it goes all the way back to Fatty. It's just funny watching fat people, especially when they're agile, like you said, when they move around good and they can do that thing, you know, like Farley had and stuff. It's just it's a fucking joy to watch, you know.
It is, and it's it's something that it's as much of a sort of, not a genre, but it's as much of a just a trope in film as as the anti-hero, or you know what I mean? It's just
it's one of the tropes now. Yeah.
The funny fat dude or fat girl. And I'll just say this, I wish that they would start hiring more of them instead of, doing all the extra body, the body special effects and all that. Because that stuff is just, it's like it never looks real. I'll tell you one. I'll leave with this. I'll tell you one of the great cameo. I don't want to say cameo, but one of the great one-off fat performances ever.
Okay.
And I don't know if this guy ever showed up again. And maybe you would know, but remember Stand By Me? And it was Lardass.
Oh, wait.
That whole scene.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I don't know if that
O'Connell was fat.
Yeah. Oh, and he was too. That's funny. Yeah. And he became.
That's so funny. The puke kid.
The puke kid. Yeah. And that was totally I don't know if I ever saw that guy again, but that was totally, that was real. At least it seemed real to me. It looked real to me. And of course, that scene is just great. We're just like,
man, that's probably the standout. Yeah, that's real memorable.
Yes.
It's Harry Crumb.
Oh, send him in.
Crumb? You mean? That's right, the Harry Crumb.
I'm a Mog. Half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend.
And I'm Mick Jagger.
How the hell are you?
Well, I'm still $1 million shy of being a millionaire.
Who wants an orange whip? Orange whip? Orange whip? 3 orange whips. Waitress! Waitress! What did he order?
Oh, he had a special.
That's what I ordered! Change my order to the soup. Good move. How drunk you get is dependent on how much alcohol you consume in relation to your total body weight. You see my point? It's not that you had a lot to drink. It's just you're too skinny. What are you looking at?
Oh, nothing, Dad.
Yeah, me neither. Why can't you look this good?
Mother Nature wasn't so kind to some of us.
Move it.
Oh, it touched me! I got my Christmas goose early.
Mr. Gates, are you aware that I'm engaged to Dr. Kirkwood?
Wouldn't you rather be in love?
You were making advances to a woman who was clearly involved with another man.
You see, if you don't make calls, you don't make any sales.
This man does not represent me, Your Honor.
I would remove that from the court records. I would. Yeah!